It's good to see everyone here this morning. It is good to be here as well. They warn you as you start growing up that once you hit 40, it's downhill from there. I have the luck of having pulled a muscle in my back last night, so it's been sore from all this coughing all this time, and it's made it all the way to there. I'm starting to get relief from the coughing, and then I pull a muscle in the same spot that's been sore. Apparently it was hanging on a thread, and that thread snapped. But, as the lesson this morning, the slide and the lesson title are a little different, but as we look at it, the question is, will you attend? So given that history that I've just, I'm starting to break down apparently physically, we're still here. We'll bypass the part that I've actually got the lessons to present and things to do there, but because I have missed already this year out of necessity of illness. So, when we are able to attend, are we here? Picked a great day to come. I'll go ahead and say this now. We've got, after morning service here, we have our Bible study. Following it, we go down the hallway, zigging and zagging, and find ourselves in the fellowship hall, and we will have plenty of food that we gracefully invite everyone to stick around for. It's not just the food, it's also the fellowship, but we come out with a lot of good food. And then at 1 o'clock, we have our afternoon service here on Fellowship Day for First Sunday. We welcome everyone at every opportunity, as Jesus welcomed everyone as well. Matthew 11, verse 28, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." He says all. I don't know of anyone in the earth that is not laboring in some form or fashion or at some time is heavy laden. So if you fit that criteria, which every single human should, he invites all to come. The question is, will we? Will we accept his invitation? Do we see the value of him offering this? There are days that we just feel, whether it's sickness, we're just in bed and just can't get out of bed and we're just tired of it and we just want our energy back. Whether it's other stresses of the world that are just on top of us and we just want them gone. At some point or another, do we ever want relief? Christ offers it. Do we see the value of being able to remove that burden? Then perhaps we'll attend. We're going to spend the rest of the lesson in Matthew chapter 22, and this is where the idea of the feast comes in, because we see that there is a marriage feast here. In the first part, of 22, first 14 verses, it talks about a parable of a wedding feast. And we see that the invitations have been sent. As we look at the first few verses, Jesus' answer spoke to them, saying, "By parables, the kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son, and sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding." We'll get back to the last part of that if they were not willing to come in a minute, but we see preparations have been made. The kingdom of heaven is like a certain king. Well, that king would be God. The ruler of the land. God has prepared a marriage for his son. As we look through the New Testament, we understand that this marriage of his son, of the Son of Man, is with the church. It is the bride of Christ. It is the church of his that he has established. He has established it and he will be married to it. So we can look at that in a whole nother lesson, but in this case here, the king has arranged a marriage for his son. Part of those arrangements are sending out the invitation. Who are we going to invite? Whenever we come up with a party or do something like that or a gathering, who are we going to invite? We have a fellowship here after Bible study. Who are we going to invite? Everyone present. Everyone that is here is welcome to come. If someone comes in that was at work and couldn't make it to morning services, they're welcome to attend as well. The doors are open. He arranged it. And he sent his servants out to call those who were invited. Not only did he just send out an invitation, like the prophets and the information that we've got ahead of us, he sent out someone to call us to that invitation, his son, in our case. Now, in this case here, we see a repetition of calling. We might send out a save the date. And then as it gets closer, we might send out the actual invitation. We might even send out a reminder. Because if you are like I am, we tend to forget things every now and then. Dates slip to mind sometimes. And so we need that reminder, and he is reminding us. The invitation has been sent. The call of the gospel has been made. God spent time in the Old Testament making plans and arrangements. He has been prophesying about Christ's coming since Adam and Eve. He gave Eve the first prophecy of the Son of Man taking and having dominion and care over the devil. He will bruise your heel, but you will bruise his head. That started in Genesis. The entire Bible is the Old Testament is focusing on the new coming. When Christ came, he brought the invitation with him. Have you not heard that it was said? They have said in times of old, and I say, here is the invitation renewed. Here is the reminder of this invitation. He laid the foundation and delivered the invitations in person. Yet they still rejected it. Why? Why is it at the last part of verse 3 there, they were invited to the wedding, he sent his servants to call them in, and they were not willing to come? King is throwing a wedding feast. This is going to be something good. This is going to be something spectacular. We think we've got good food back here? I bet their food is just going to be blown out of the park. I don't think the king's sparing an expense for his son's wedding. Especially when we're looking at it as if it is the parable of heaven. But they rejected it. It gets kind of lonely when you sit at the table all by yourself and you expected a crowd, doesn't it? Thought it was interesting what this author or what this artist did by removing everyone else from this historic picture. It is a representation, and it's not an accurate one fully. Probably wouldn't have had the table and all the place settings like we think about today, but working with the idea. Why was it rejected? Starting in verse 4, in verse 4 we see again the king sent out other servants saying, tell those who are invited, see, I have prepared my dinner. My ox and fatted calf are killed. All things are ready. Come to the wedding. Those who have held the invitation in their hands, those who have been reminded of it are not coming. And he says, go once more. Remind them again. Invite them in person. He's giving them another chance to come. When we think about the nation of Israel, do we not see this happening? When we look at the New Testament time, do we not see this happen? Send the invitation. They have been holding the invitation, the prophecies of the one to come. When Christ came, they rejected him. Even then, Christ sent his disciples. They turned to apostles. Then we see the church grow. Before all of that happens, Christ gives all of these chances. He even sends his disciples to go and to remind everyone of this, and then come back to him. And he continued his journeys. He gave invitation after invitation, chance after chance. How many times did he say, the time is here? The time is at hand. It's ready to happen for the kingdom to come. Now, the wedding feast, for in this case here, also does look towards, when we see, when the wedding happens, there is no more choices. The church will be bound to Christ, and that will be the eternity. However, he is giving chance after chance for us to get to the feast before the ceremony happens. Do we take this? Do we take the invitation and utilize it? Unfortunately, as we look forward in verses 5 and 6, we see that not only do they reject it, they get even worse. Verse 5, but they made light of it and went their way. One to his own farm, another to his business, and the rest seized his servants, treated them spitefully, and killed them. You have the invitation. You have been reminded of it. And now the final reminder is that you are killing them or using them despicably. When the king heard about it, he was furious, and he sent out his armies, destroyed those murderers, and burned up their cities. In this particular picture here, what would have happened when Christ said, go into the city, let's prepare a feast. Let's prepare the Passover meal before he is crucified. And yet, when it comes time to sit down and eat, Peter says, sorry, I couldn't come. We had family come in this weekend. Andrew's not there because he was up kind of late the last night and he decided to sleep in. James, the son of Zebedee, really needed some me time. John just simply said, I was there last week. Philip, sorry, Jesus, but my kids had travel ball at that time. Bartholomew, we hadn't been out of town in a while. Thomas, I would have. I doubt it would have been any good today. Matthew, I had to get my taxes done. James, the son of Alphaeus, my dad wanted to fish today. Thaddeus, we needed a family day today. Simon, I didn't hear my alarm. Or Judas, getting tired of hearing the same old message, and you only sing the same old songs. Does that sound like some of the same excuses of today? Does that sound like something that would have gone over for Jesus and his closest disciples? Oh, well, I guess you have been following me for 3 years, and, we haven't had the luxury resorts and the great hotels or anything like that. It has been kind of rough sometimes. Yeah, this was just the last time we'd ever get together before I died, but, I understand. Invitation after invitation. Luckily, that's not how this happened, that they did not reject the invitation of Christ. In fact, we look at them and we see their beginnings. We even see where some of the fishermen were told, well, why don't you cast your nets on the other side because you haven't been catching anything. And they said, okay. They do it, and it takes calling other boats in, and they almost sunk both boats getting the haul in. And he said, tell you what, why don't y'all follow me? And they left it all behind. I started thinking about that one more. I may develop that one into a whole nother sermon. But it's, look at this prize catch. They could go on vacation. They could quit fishing for a little while. They could take care of their families. And instead, he says, why don't you two come with me? And leave this massive workload behind for someone else to do. Leave your families behind. Get ready for a rough life, but it will be rewarding. Imagine how that translates out. He said, come and follow me and I will make you fishers of men. They didn't reject the invitation. They actually came. As we continue forward, the feast is ready. The wedding is prepared. We need guests to come. The king still wants people to come. Verse 8, then he said to his servants, the wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Notice how it changes. The people rejected him, and the king said they're not worthy. Therefore go to the highways, and as many as you find, invite to the wedding. So those servants went out to the highways and gathered together all whom they found, both bad and good, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. Can you imagine having a major event and no one shows up? It's like, it's time for someone to be here. I want this event to be a good event. Bring in anyone that will come. And they got both bad and good. We also see, will he accept the invitation? We saw where the king got mad about his servants being mistreated and killed, and so there was justice served on them. The doors were opened and said, any who would like to come may come. Sounds kind of like the New Testament, doesn't it? Sounds like the nation of Israel who has rejected God for the last time, and he says, you stiff-necked and hard-hearted people. And the doors were open. The gospel would be preached in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the world, Jew and Gentile. Doors are open. Any may enter. The trick is that we must go to the feast ready for the feast. The feast and the wedding are planned and ready to go forward. New guests are invited, open to all. But when we accept that invitation, we accept the terms of the invitation. We must read it. We must follow its directions. In the time, there were customs about how you went to the wedding feast. There were customs about how you dressed, and the host provided the attire. In this case here, the host would provide the wedding garment. You show up, you get at the door, they hand you the garment, you put it on and enter in. The problem is, in verse 11, when the king came in to see the guests, he saw a man there who did not have on a wedding garment. So he said to him, friend, how did you come in here without a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then the king said to him, bind him hand and foot, take him away, cast him into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The good and the bad were called. The gospel call is for all. Who will accept it? If we accept it, do we follow the terms and conditions that he gives? On the invitation, it says, come in, you will receive a garment, you will wear that garment. He received the garment but never put it on. He was not following what God wanted. He was not following the rules of the king. There are consequences. God has set his plan before us. The question is, one, will we accept the invitation? Will we show up? Will we do what God wants us to do and be acceptable to him? It says, for many are called, but few are chosen. So many people have different excuses here and there and why they're not here on a Sunday, why they don't come on a Wednesday, why we don't fellowship one with another, why we don't go and help spread the gospel to our friends, neighbors, and relatives, why we don't obey the Great Commission. The question is, why are we full of excuses against God? God should be our excuse to not do other things. Found this trolling around the internet, and it's like church should be your excuse for missing everything else. Why do we miss church? For fill in the blank. Why do we choose to do something else? Because, well, shouldn't it be? Well, something came up. No. Sunday comes up every week. That's been coming up every week since the start of time. First day of the week started in Genesis chapter 1. I think it's been around longer than baseball or football. or the lake, or fill in the blank of whatever else we choose to make an excuse out of. Is church our excuse to not do other things? It's up to us as to whether we do it or not. Unfortunately, some will attend and not follow God's directions. They'll be removed before the wedding occurs. When we see the final judgment come, first will be parted right and left, the sheep and the goats. Then you'll also have those who claim the name of Christ, and Christ will say, I never knew you. You're not wearing the right clothing. We see in Revelation 1 and Revelation 7 about putting on the garments, about having our garments cleaned. Have we been cleansed in the blood of the Lamb? Have we taken and lived that same cleansed life? Do we continue to cleanse our clothes? Do we even wear the clothes that were cleaned? Or do we come in the door right there, put on our Sunday clothes and say, yep, I'm here. Then when we walk out the door, we take them back off. That's not going to cut it. Look at the wedding feast here. The man did not wear the clothing that was provided. Christ gives us all that we have. In that invitation, it tells us what the dress code is, what the behavior code is. We have all that through the Bible. The Bible is our invitation. The New Testament invites us to worship Him in the way that He's chosen for us to worship, to serve Him each and every day. Will we attend? In order to attend the wedding feast, we have to get the invitation ahead of time. God has given that to us. Christ has come. He has given us the words directly from the Father. He has even been the sacrifice for our sins upon the cross. He rose again to fulfill the Scriptures, to fulfill the prophecies. Are we willing to follow Him? He's given an open invitation to all. Will you follow me? Pick up your cross and follow me daily. Do we do it daily? If we are not doing it daily, then I encourage us to do so. Let's study into the Bible. Let's study the words of Christ and find out what exactly He wants us to do. And then let's have the strength to do it. If we need help getting onto that path, we open the invitation now. If we come forward to get on that path, if you are on the path but have stumbled or sat down and need help getting back up, we'll help you get back up as well. If you need help staying on the path, let's do that. Let's help one another. Let's look at the invitation of Christ. He has offered us all to come, but He says we've got to do some things. Let's do what He says to do so that we might be able to be at that wedding feast when the time comes. We don't know when He's going to call us in, but let's be ready when that time comes. If there's anything we can do for anyone at this time, let us know while together we stand and sing.